Welcome to the 700 Club. It's the day of witches and goblins and ghouls, and the Republicans have dressed up Nancy Pelosi as the witch of the year, and they're focusing on her. If you vote for one of these guys, you're voting for her as Speaker, and she is the one to scare on Halloween. So I don't know.
On Halloween?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to succeed or not, but that seems to be the tactic. But there's something else that's going on, too. We're having an invasion of people. You know, the folks down in Latin America are not stupid, and they really want to come up to North America. That's where everything, there's prosperity, there's money, there's jobs, there are all these nice things. And they dream about coming north to America. So how do you get in? Well, they've got some laws here that they want to take advantage of. They say that they can claim asylum because they're being persecuted, and lawyers give them the pitch to make, and so there are thousands jamming the courts to get free. The other thing is, if they get pregnant, they can get across the border, and they can have a baby on American soil, then that baby becomes an American citizen with all the rights thereof. And how did they do it? It was on account of the 14th Amendment, had to do with slaves being citizens. But has anybody ever, come across an invasion of this magnitude? Well, the president sort of said, I'm going to give an executive order. I'm not going to agree with that. But, of course, the legal scholars are immediately jumping on you and say, no, Mr. President, this is the 14th Amendment, and you can't just automatically wipe out the citizenship of somebody born here. Well, what's really got to happen is the Supreme Court right now has got to rule on it. They have had several rulings so far. The child of a Chinese immigrant, for example, who didn't have legal citizenship was still an American citizen. So, but what about all these illegals who are coming across? They don't have status, and are they really on American soil? So what's got to happen is I think the Supreme Court has got to rule on it again. But the president can't do it, and I think everybody realizes he can't do it by executive order. But something's got to be done because it's just one more loophole that is being manipulated by people who want to take advantage of our country. Wendy.
Yeah, and Pat, Trump says he wants to close that loophole with an executive order, as you mentioned. But as Dale heard reports, that has sparked a debate over what the amendment says and how it can be changed.
Does President Trump have the power to strike a blow to birthright citizenship, which is backed up by the 14th Amendment, with the stroke of his pen? That depends on who you ask. Dr. Bradley Jacob is a constitutional expert at Regent University School of Law.
In my view, the president's ability to change the law through executive orders is pretty limited. The question then really becomes, can we treat children of illegal immigrants as being not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? Constitutional scholars differ on that question. What he's doing is forcing a court battle.
Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch says the president's idea is worth considering.
I think we just have to be very direct in asking questions as to whether or not birthright citizenship is a bridge too far in terms of benefits to illegal aliens.
Even the future Democratic Senate Majority Leader argued in 1993 that no sane country would allow birthright citizenship.
If making it easy to be an illegal alien isn't enough, how about offering a reward for being an illegal immigrant? No sane country would do that, right? Guess again.
President Trump announced his plan on Axios on HBO, which airs November 4th.
On immigration, some legal scholars believe you can get rid of birthright citizenship without changing the Constitution.
With an executive order.
Exactly.
Right.
Have you thought about that?
Yes.
Tell me more.
It was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Guess
14th
what?
Amendment.
You don't.
You don't.
Number one, you don't need that. Number two,
I mean, that's in dispute.
You could definitely
that's very much in dispute.
Well, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order.
But the top Republican in Congress said the president does not have that power.
Well, you obviously cannot do that. You cannot end birthright citizenship with an executive order. We didn't like it when Obama tried changing immigration laws via executive action. I think in this case the 14th Amendment's pretty clear.
The backdrop for the president's threat to end birthright citizenship is this. the caravan of illegal migrants approaching the U.S.-Mexico border, and a midterm election where addressing illegal immigration has huge appeal for the president's base.
I wish I could just tell him, and I say it, caravan, turn around. You're not coming in. You're not coming in. I'm sorry.
And the president is sending more than 5,000 active duty troops to the border to stop it. If the president does spark a court battle over the 14th Amendment, one of the questions for the court is fairly easy. Does a law written to help freed slaves already in the United States apply to illegal foreigners? Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. You know, something happened in Pakistan. Young girl was being harassed, and they said, you don't honor the prophet. And she said, did the prophet die for you? And my Savior died for me. That was it. And this is Pakistan, so they want to try her and execute her on account of blasphemy against the prophet. I mean, I've been to Pakistan, and I've dealt with the Pakistani people, and they were just very wonderful, reasonable people. And all of a sudden, some fanatic Muslims have taken over that country. And the fact that they would execute this poor little girl on account of saying, my Savior died for me, did Muhammad die for you? I mean, there's nothing in the record that indicated Muhammad ever died for anybody. So why is that blasphemy? Well, Christians now are celebrating a religious freedom victory, which I might add was sparked in large measure by the American Center for Law and Justice. They've been working on it. But Christians in Pakistan are now on guard for reprisals on account of that holding. I tell you, these fanatic Muslims just go wild. They go wild, and they get stirred up, and then they go on a rampage, and they'll start killing Christians and desecrating churches and so forth. Well, John Jessup has more on that story. John?
Thanks, Pat. Asia Bibi, the Pakistani Christian woman sentenced to death for blasphemy, is free today. The country's highest court acquitting her of the charges that brought her a death sentence back in 2010. Pakistan's Chief Justice announced the verdict to a packed courtroom. The charges against Bibi date back to a hot day in 2009 when she went to get water for her fellow farm workers. Two Muslim women refused to drink from a container used by Bibi, a Christian. Later, a mob accused her of blasphemy. Her family and lawyers say she never insulted the prophet. The landmark ruling could set off mass protests or violence by hardline Islamists. CBN's Gary Lane says the country's Christians could be in danger.
We need to be praying as Christians for Christians in Pakistan and the churches there, because Islamists are already starting to riot. And if it gets out of hand, they could end up burning churches, hurting Christians and so forth. So we need to be praying.
The American Center for Law and Justice has been fighting for Asia Bibi's release in Pakistan and at the United Nations. Well, turning now to the U.S. and midterm elections, now less than 1 week away. One of the hottest races is in West Virginia, where Democrat Senator Joe Manchin faces a serious challenge by the state's Republican Attorney General. As Jennifer Wishon reports, if the incumbent was any Democrat other than Manchin, the Republican would likely win in a rout.
Over the past 20 years, the Mountaineer state has done a political somersault, flipping from deep blue to reliably red. Its entire congressional delegation is Republican, except for its senior senator, Democrat Joe Manchin, who's facing a challenge from State Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. He's West Virginia's first Republican AG in nearly 80 years. As a Senate candidate, he's taking full advantage of enthusiasm for President Trump, who won the state with nearly 70% of the vote.
Pro-life, pro-gun, pro-coal, pro-Trump.
I'm Patrick Morrisey, and I'm your conservative fighter.
And in this new red state, he's painting his opponent as out of touch.
Liberal Joe's got to go. Amen, brothers.
Manchin is playing a trump card, too, reminding voters that he chooses West Virginia over party, like his well-timed vote to confirm Justice Kavanaugh.
I'm Joe Manchin, and I approve this message because for me, all roads lead to West Virginia.
And he's not letting the loss of the NRA's endorsement to Morrisey stop him from showing off his gun rights bona fides.
Now the threat is Patrick Morrisey's lawsuit to take away health care from people with pre-existing conditions. He is just dead wrong.
Pro-life groups are taking aim at Manchin for his lukewarm support for life. The Senate race coincides with a constitutional amendment that clarifies West Virginia neither secures nor protects the right to abortion. Here at the Romney Diner, voters are quick to share who they're supporting.
I'm going to vote for Morrissey.
For Gary Seville, it's simple. He's happy with President Trump and wants to send him a solid soldier.
That's what I want to see. Somebody that will support him.
Quite frankly, Joe's the guy that needs to be in Washington.
Nicholson appreciates Manchin's willingness to cross the aisle and vote with Republicans.
Vote with your heart, not with your party. You got to go on your own gut belief and your research to make a decision. And yes, more people need to go across the aisle. There's no doubt about it.
Bill McDonald supported Manchin in the past, but he's voting for Morrissey. Look no farther than President Obama's energy policies, he says, to understand why so many West Virginians have switched parties.
We're proud, and we will not allow people to close our coal mines and to inundate us with opioids, okay, and take away our livelihood, and then they want to continue doing that, and they don't ever want to stop, they want to give up because of clean energy.
Morrissey took Obama's clean energy plan to the Supreme Court and won. Donna Hawk voted early, and for her, the answer was easy.
Manchin.
But she says the real solution to the problems here and the nation don't require an election.
We need to get back to God. They took God out of schools, kids went haywire, you know, and we need that spiritual base. The spiritual base is the only thing that can fight the evilness.
If Manchin wins, he'll remain a sought-after swing vote. If Morrissey pulls off a victory, it will be huge for West Virginia Republicans and President Trump. Reporting from the Windy Mountains of West Virginia, Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, for more on the midterms, let's go back to Pat.
Well, I'm a fan of Joe Manchin. He's a terrific guy, but I don't know what's happening over there. You know, the guy who ran for governor ran as a Democrat, then he got in office and he switched parties, became a Republican. I think that Manchin should have walked across the aisle some time ago and he would have been welcomed warmly by the Republicans. It's a close race. It's interesting, though, that, you know, I don't know what to say, except West Virginia was certainly strongly for Trump, and it's a strongly conservative state. Well, our political analyst, John Waggy, is back again. And this time we look at the all-important battle for the House of Representatives. And, John, you're one of the few people who think the House is still in play. Everybody has said, oh, we write off the House as a blue wave. The blue wave is getting broken up on the rocks of something or other. Tell us about your feeling.
My feeling is, I think Jennifer's story reflected it as far as the Senate race. The people at the grassroots level seem to have more sense than all the collective punditry that goes on in Washington, D.C. and New York. We have to get back to God. You know, that's what the woman said in Jennifer's story. I think that in spite of the numbers, the generic ballot is overwhelmingly in favor of Democrats for the House of Representatives. But the generic ballot does not decide who keeps control of the House of Representatives. And so I think, for one thing, there hasn't been the turning that needs to happen before Election Day, but there are still 6 days left, 5 days left. People are voting even as we speak. But I think that the collective wisdom of the media establishment in Washington and New York was wrong in 2016. I'm not convinced they're right this time, but they certainly have the numbers on their side right now concerning the House.
Have you identified certain, for example, we live here in the 2nd Congressional District, which is Virginia Beach, and they have poured more money into that race than has ever happened in history. And I talked last night to Scott Taylor, who's the incumbent Republican, and he indicated that they've got some initial balloting, you know, that usually the Democrats are way ahead. And he said this time it isn't showing up that way, that people are getting votes, and it looks like it's about even, which would make the Republicans come out really well. What do you think? Are there any key districts that you've pointed out that might be in play that you want to talk about?
Well, specifically not. We've chosen 10 key districts, but they're not necessarily going to tell us the story. But these are districts that 9 of them are Republican held seats, either open seats vacated by somebody who resigned, or Republican incumbents struggling against the Democrat.
Talk about a couple of them.
Well, for instance, the 3rd district in Kentucky, where Andy Barr is facing a Democrat, Amy McGrath, and in that race, you know, he's from the Lexington area, which would generally be a red district, but he's been in some trouble. You mentioned Scott Taylor, right here in Virginia Beach. I've been struck by the flurry of negative advertising that we've seen, and the Democrats have poured a lot of money around the country into him. Dana Rohrabacher, for instance, in California's 48th district. This is a guy who's been in Congress for what, close to 30 years?
He was a strong speechwriter, a strong conservative, and
he's being challenged by a former Republican in Orange County, and he has a narrow lead. But that's one of the things, one of the bugaboos about this year and this election is that I'm not sure we can trust the polls. And I know that, you know, you always fall back on, well, the polls are wrong. But in this case, I think they might really be wrong. And I don't think they are properly measuring the intensity of support for President Trump. And even though he's not on the ballot, he has put himself in the middle on the ballot. And if we looked at the news cycle over the last 4 weeks, it's just been incredible. I mean, they've thrown everything but the kitchen sink at him. And now he's made his own decision to go on the immigration, you know, the executive order, which Dale reported on. And even though that was his decision, there might be a method to his madness.
He's gone an unprecedented 22 times, which no president has ever campaigned like he has. I mean, he's really gone out there.
He has gone all out. And the lesson of 2016 is that money doesn't necessarily turn out to be the predictor. But there is a big uphill climb in each of these individual 435 races for the House.
Another race that seems to be determinative is the 7th district up in Richmond. There's a guy named Brett. They beat Eric Cantor.
Yes.
And Brett took over as a Republican. Have you got any word on that one?
You know, the polls show either a slight 1 or 2 point lead for the Democrat, which would be in the margin of error, or a slight lead for Brett. But it's going to be close. And again, this is another one of those situations where turnout is going to be everything. You know.
Talk about the numbers. How many seats are held by Republicans that are in play, and how many do the Democrats have to win in order to take over?
Okay, the Democrats need 23 seats to take over the House of Representatives. There's 235 Republicans now, 7 vacancies, and 193 Democrats. So they need 23. And most of the polling by people who are following it race by race show that the Democrats have enough to win the House at this point. But these races aren't over. There's still several days left, and we don't know who.
Well, you mentioned another one in California. There's a guy named Duncan Hunter, who's the son of the former congressman.
Narrow lead in California right now. Well, 2 to 3 point lead.
He's ahead by 2 or 3.
He's ahead by 2 to 3 points. But these ones where they're behind by 2 or 3 points or ahead by 2 or 3 points, those can literally go either way.
We mentioned Michigan and having to do with the Republican James is coming up so dramatically in Michigan, and other lesser offices the same way.
Yeah, the state office for governor is showing the Democrat ahead, but the Republican had surged. It's another thing, Pat, that I should mention concerning the House races, because I think it could be important on election night, and that is that a poll taken, it was an article in Vox back in July, and senior Americans were absolutely committed by much higher numbers than millennials. And we know the standard thinking is that millennials, you know, talk Democrat, but then they don't go to the polls. Now, that we have seen around the country a surge in young voters. There's definitely been a surge in Democratic turnout in the primaries and that sort of thing. But the senior citizens I'm talking to, if they could vote twice, they would. I mean, and I think part of that is that there's kind of a laissez-faire attitude among younger voters about socialism. And older voters remember the Cold War. They know what socialism has done to societies. Yeah. They saw the wall fall. And I think that they're alarmed not only by the just the media barrage against Trump, but also about the whole business of outright socialists campaigning as Democrats now, and I think that's going to have an effect by the time we get to Tuesday.
They talk about health care. I'm not sure how that becomes a Democrat issue because it was Obamacare everybody hated, and one vote kept the Republicans from turning it over. Now they're owning this lousy health care system. What is it?
And I think the machinations that went on in Washington, people don't follow that. What they are is they're scared and they're vulnerable to the Democratic attacks that say these people voted not to have pre-existing conditions covered under insurance policies, and people go, well, I better vote Democrat or I'm going to lose whatever health care I can get. I think that's the general theme, and it's really hard for Republicans to argue, look, I took this procedural vote because we were planning to repeal and replace Obamacare. Yeah. We didn't get to the replace because of all the Democrats and a couple renegade Republicans, and that's a hard message to get through when you're in town halls where people are talking about their terrible experience they had with their brother who had cancer, you know?
Well, I noticed that they're going against Pelosi, too. I mean, it's like she becomes the poster child of the attack ads.
Yeah, and she was on Colbert last night saying that we will win the House of Representatives, and Colbert accused her of jinxing the Democrats. He said, you're not on Hillary's fireworks barge, are you? You know, so, you know, but they feel that confident about it, but we'll see. I'm not. All right,
you want to make a prediction of how many votes it'll be when it's all over with?
I'll do the how many votes on Monday, but I still say Republicans keep the House.
You do say they keep the House?
I think Republicans are going to keep the House, and I'll add seats in the Senate. That's
well, you thought there would be what, 4 to 5 Republican added seats in the Senate? Is that?
Yeah, and that doesn't look good on polls right now. It looks more like 2, but I still think that there's going to be this pocket of voters that is somehow being missed in the polling that's going to up that number. We'll see.
How about that race in Arizona, that McSally thing? I mean, I just can't understand why she wouldn't be way, way ahead.
Well, you know, there are some angry Arizonans over their Republican senators previously, and a lot of young and independent voters are excited about Sinema in spite of the quotes that she's famous for, calling Arizona the meth lab of democracy. That doesn't seem to offend too many young people and independents.
It would be okay to go join the Taliban? I mean, that was...
I still think that McSally is going to come through in the end. There was a 6-point lead for Sinema in one of the latest polls, but if you factor in the Green Party, who is on the ballot, it goes down to 3 points. It's within margins of error there. There are close Senate races all over the map. Yeah. And the bottom line remains Republicans have to defend 4, and there are about 10 that Democrats have to defend. And so the numbers are in the Republicans' favor. We'll see how it works.
So you're going to come back and give us a more precise analysis?
I'll give specific numbers on Monday, the day before Election Day.
We'll hold our breath. But right now, your forecast is Republicans hold the House and gain in the Senate.
Yes.
Well, we'll see what happens. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here, and we'll see what happens. You can watch, of course, live election night coverage on our CBN News channel. To find the channel in your area, go to CBN News website. Our election coverage will also air on Freeform at 11 p.m.